Thank you very much. My grandparents experienced World War II, and the rallying cry for their generation became, of course, as all Norwegians here today will know, the rallying cry was never again. And much to their joy, that dream came true. They lived to see their children and grandchildren grow up in a Norway at peace, at deep peace even. Now, war is of course back in Europe, and Russia's attack on Ukraine fades in comparison to anything that we have seen since 1945. In scale, in its brutality, in its senselessness. 5.5 million Ukrainians have fled the war. That is more than the entire population of Norway. And we may have neglected the lessons from 1945 and underestimated the security implications of Russia's descent into totalitarianism, but we have not forgotten who we are. Ukraine is fighting for its freedom, its democracy, even its right to exist. And we, Europe, North America, and countries far beyond our region, are standing firmly by their side. Prediction is fraught with uncertainty, and we are still in the early days of this war. But allow me to share some preliminary takeaways in quick succession as a basis for further discussion. Firstly, Ukraine will need our support for the long haul. We may have been quick to respond, but that is not enough. We need to stay the course during the war, but also when the war one day comes to an end. All strands of work matter. We must keep up our political, military, economic, and humanitarian assistance. Norway and the Norwegian government has already provided substantial support to Ukraine in a number of areas. But let me be clear, we are ready to do more, we are preparing to do more, and we will do a lot more to support Ukraine as well. Secondly, Putin may have underestimated Euro-Atlantic unity in the short term, but we should not underestimate the challenge of preserving our unity in the long term. In my mind, addressing the repercussions of the crisis on the European and American economies will be key. Inflation is now rapidly increasing across the globe, adding to pressures caused by the post-COVID recovery. This is not sustainable in the long run, and by experience we know that it may fuel isolationism and populism. It may undermine our cohesion, it may destabilize fragile states and divert our attention. Hence, we have to address it. My third takeaway, the war has demonstrated the effectiveness of NATO's deterrence. But there can be no going back to business as usual when it comes to our deterrence posture in the East. The war will leave Russia weaker, but possibly also more errant and unpredictable. Even in the best case scenarios, whatever the outcome, NATO will need to strengthen its posture in the East, notably in the Baltic states, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania and Bulgaria, and in a way that we can sustain beyond this crisis. In the coming years, along the eastern flank, we can expect more military activity both from NATO and Russia. To avoid misunderstandings and an unintended escalation, we need to keep political and military channels of communication open with Moscow. We need to manage risks. A more unpredictable Russia makes this critically important. Norway will support efforts to this end at the upcoming NATO summit and in the strategic concept. Fourthly, Norway's defense concept remains robust and has proven its merits during the initial stages of this war and this crisis. Indeed, tension in the Arctic has remained low despite the ongoing war. Our defense concept continues to rely on reinforcements in crisis or war, not on permanent basing in peacetime. To keep that concept viable, though, we have to continue to train and exercise with our allies and make sure our infrastructure is fit for purpose. To this end, in a few weeks' time, Parliament is expected to ratify a supplementary defense agreement with the US, and we remain committed to strengthening our national defense. Earlier this year, we hosted the exercise called Response, and a few weeks ago, the government also allocated a supplementary grant of 3 billion kroner to our armed forces. Much remains to be done, but I'm confident that we are indeed on the right track. The fifth takeaway, Sweden and Finland will become NATO members. And for our region, this is a game changer. 73 years ago, we gave up the dream of a Nordic security alliance. Now we will be united within the NATO framework, and that opens a range of new possibilities. Sweden and Finland will make NATO stronger and Scandinavia more secure. And in the north, their membership paves the way for more integrated defense planning across the Nordic and possibly also the Baltic region. In December last year, the government appointed a defense commission to provide advice on the long-term development of our defense. I'm looking forward to their conclusions on Nordic cooperation, because the future potential is huge. Sixth takeaway. The war in Ukraine has laid bare the risk that Russian expansionism poses to NATO partners, and especially those who aspire for membership. Our open door policy is not credible if Russia is ready to close that door at any time. Now, the alliance cannot extend security guarantees to non-members, but we can tailor our partnerships to this new reality by putting more emphasis on defense and interoperability, enabling partners to better protect themselves. And I see no reason why we shouldn't resort to more common funding to achieve this end. We need to be more agile, and we must be able to muster the necessary resources on short notice. Finally, but importantly, none of us knows what Russia will look like in 1, 2, or 10 years, nor what its relations with the West might be. One crisis can lead to another, but crisis can also foster surprising opportunities. Indeed, much of the security architecture of the past 70 years was born on the ashes of previous crises, and we must be ready to grasp opportunities if they emerge. We are not there today, however, and we will not be there as long as Russia pursues its current course. Russia must end its senseless war and re-engage with the outside world on normal terms. But we should not give up the long-term vision of a normal relationship. An unstable and imperialistic neighbor is in no one's interest, and Russia is too large to be ignored. As for Norway, we have aligned ourselves closely with the EU when it comes to sanctions. And we maintain a limited practical cooperation with Russia in the north, focused on matters that neighbors have to handle together, whatever the state of the relations, such as the management of fishery resources, environmental issues, and search and rescue. I have asked myself what my grandparents would have said in the current situation had they still been alive. I suspect they would have said, never again. And while that certainly is good advice, planning for the future based on the latest crisis can leave us myopic and unprepared. Indeed, Russia's war against Ukraine does not stop the emergence of new and disruptive technologies. It does not slow down China's emergence as a superpower, nor does it put an end to the militarization of space and cyberspace. Deep tectonic shifts continue, and we have to adapt. But whatever it takes, I'm convinced that we stand a better chance to succeed if we stand together. And that is why Norway remains deeply committed not only to NATO, but also to building strong relations with individual allies, with the European Union, and with our Nordic neighbors. And this is also where Ukraine belongs, Mr. Ambassador, in the heart of the Euro-Atlantic family. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.